good evening, everybody, and thank you for being here. I do have to mention a couple things. First of all, it's a privilege and pleasure to be here, but I have to give you a little bit of open confession. I read through the biographies of the adults and had the good fortune to meet the children in the green room before we came on, and I came away with the feeling you can imagine, intimidation. And because I looked through these things and these people, the adults I'm referring to, following Dr. Tommy, no easy act right there. Great presenters. They've been on national talk shows. They've had articles published. They've done videos. One person or a couple people, I believe, were even on the Oprah Winfrey Show. Now, I watched Oprah Winfrey a couple of times, and I've actually looked at the magazine in the store when men weren't looking my way. And the only other claim to fame I have is that somebody once said I look like Dr. Phil, and I don't know if that's a compliment or not. But anyway, that's why I'm a little bit intimidated. So I have to share this story because it really, really resonates with me, not just because there's kids in the audience, because all of us have been through this childhood phase. Some of us are still in it, as a matter of fact. But I have a story to tell. I was the shyest child in my elementary school growing up in San Rafael, California, only about an hour from here. And people hear that and they say, oh, everybody says they're shy, you grow through it and everything else. No, I was the shyest, and I'll illustrate it with this story. When I was in 5th grade, my teacher, Bob Vassar, who has since become a friend of mine, used to give us individual math packets to work on in addition to our regular assignments. And we'd get some minimal instruction from the teacher. It was independent design work. And if you didn't finish the work, you had to stay after school. One time, it was actually springtime in Bob's class, Mr. Vassar as he was then, I didn't finish the math packet. I knew the consequence. I stayed after school. And so you can imagine the horror for this extremely shy child when the bell rings at the end of the school day and everybody else gets up eagerly to go home, to hang out with friends, to play, and I sit there silently in my chair. And the time passed like it was forever. And believe it or not, 4 days, 5 days, 6 days. You hear the quaking in my voice just retelling it. 7 days. And finally, Mr. Vassar came up to me and said, haven't you finished that yet? And I said, well, Mr. Vassar, I finished it a little while ago, in fact, the first day, but I was waiting for you to tell me it was okay to go home. I tell that, it's funny, I tell this at my own school, and the women always go, oh, and the guys always go, what a dork. and they're probably both right. But the reality of it is a true story. And so I tell this story because it illustrates for kids, but all of us, that you never stop growing. You always reach out of your comfort zone and try new things. And so I share this part looking back at that piece and saying, how did I go from there to having a job that's a very, very public job? And so as a superintendent and principal, as Pamela pointed out, I have a little one school district of 166 kids. It's my 21st year as a principal. I had the good fortune of being a teacher for 9 years at 5th and 6th grade level primarily before that. So how do you go from being the shyest child in the world to somebody who has a job that interacts with the public, does interviews with newspapers, radios, TV stations? Not a lot. Kenwood's a little tiny place. But just the idea that it's so out of a comfort zone. And so as I'm thinking through this, I had to think, let's see, what were the steps that propelled me? And the first thing I think of is the fact that, you know this if you've ever been shy, you spend a lot of time watching, a lot of time observing other people. I was not only incredibly shy, but very, very quiet, youngest of 3 kids. My brother and sister are very normal, my parents are happy to point out. So in watching all those years, not only as an elementary school student, but into high school and even into college and a little bit as an adult, you came out of this gradually, I realized in observing people that there were many, many qualities that I wanted to emulate, or I think someone used the term copy or model. And among those qualities where I wanted to be somebody who felt comfortable and confident. I wanted to be somebody who had a sense of humor. I wanted to be somebody who was loyal and trustworthy. Sounds too good to be true, but when you sit back and watch, you see all this in action and you realize the happiness and comfort that people who have those qualities possess. And that's what I wanted to do. So with that in mind, as I continued through elementary school and high school looking for these opportunities, I had to realize that it was only within me to bring this out. No one else was going to create it for me. So I came up, if you will, with looking at what I call the 5 qualities, or five F's, or the formula for success, formula for friendship. So we go back to the 5 F's. You can tell I'm not a professional speaker. Don't claim to be. But I think about this ironically now as a principal and superintendent, in that what's the one thing we all want to avoid in school? F's, or the principal, superintendent, either one. No one wants to get an F. You don't want to get an F to bring it home to mom or dad. You don't want to show it to a friend. And so it's ironic now that I would develop 5 F's for friendship, and I'll share them with you. The 5 F's to get to a formula for friendship. And these are things, what I like about this, it's common sense. You're not going to go away and say, wow, that guy changed my life. I'd never heard that before. But it's a good reminder. The 5 F's are focus, fairness, follow through, forgiveness, and fun. And I'll briefly illustrate them. Focus. When you focus on the kind of person you want to be, whether you're 10 years old or 75 years old or any place in between, you tend to attract people of similar minds, similar habits. When I talked about loyalty, trust, kindness, sense of humor. When you focus on that's the kind of person you want to be, you see that in others and you find that friendship. Fairness, you realize as friends that you can't always have it your way. It doesn't change as an adult, as we understood. You have to be a good listener as well as a good talker. You don't always get to do the things you want to do. Sometimes it's nice and you learn new experiences by doing what the other people want to do. Follow through is hugely important. When I was a kid, you follow through and made connections with friends 2 ways. You got on the one phone you had at your home, if it was available. Or if you had friends in the neighborhood, you walked to their house or waited until you had a driver's license years later. Nowadays, kids have a tremendous advantage in this regard with cell phones, is that you have an ability to text, an ability to tweet, an ability to email. There are connections made all the time on a daily basis. And so you can keep that connectedness and follow through. And it's so important to connect with your friends constantly and not just on their birthdays or once a month. My challenge for myself, and I share this with you, is I get up every morning and the first thing I think of is, how can I connect with a friend, whether reconnect or connect with a new friend today? It's not an easy thing to do, but it's a simple guiding task for me. The 4th one I talked about is forgiveness. People will make mistakes. Friends will disappoint you. You'll disappoint yourself. Give everybody the opportunity to be forgiven for making mistakes. And the final is fun, as I'll wrap this up. Fun is the essence of friendship, and I'll share a couple brief stories. I have made so many friends in my life just from finding things that are out of my comfort zone, like speaking tonight. And one I'll share with you. When I was a young teacher, a friend and I went to the airport one day after school with no money. This is 1984, I'll remind you. With no money, with no other clothes, and decided we'd get on the first flight we could find. True story. Don't try this until you're 18. Even then, it's probably kind of questionable. He was hoping for New Orleans. I was hoping for Hawaii. We ended up in Phoenix, Arizona. One of the most memorable evenings of our lives. Still to this day gives us something to talk about. And when people hear the story, they still shake their head. And you're in charge of our children today. Yes, that's true. The other part of my friendship story has to do with my friend Bill, who is my friend since kindergarten. My son's named after him. My son's now 19 years old. And Bill was famous for putting the star on the Christmas tree in 6th grade. Unfortunately, he slipped off the desk, fell down, and accidentally, this is an accident, pulled the wig off our teacher's head. We had no idea she had a wig. Bill is still my friend today, somehow. And I'll leave you with this last quote. When you set out to find a friend, you often don't find one. When you set out to become a friend, friends are everywhere. Thanks so much.